I have so many friends whose kids are 21, and they're like, my son loves your show. Now I have your children.
Yes, I think you have a young demographic out there.
It is a lot. I think we get all ages, but we get a lot of young people who don't even know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
A girl emailed me the other day and said, I don't get anything you're talking about. But I Google everything, to see what you do.
You're that history professor that we all needed.
Yeah, exactly.
I really did.
I didn't realize that's what this was going to be, but that it turned into that, so.
What a fun surprise, though.
It was, and you taking off? Bye, darling.
Bye, it's great to meet you.
It turned into something that, just completely organically, that I didn't expect it to be, and I'm willing to take that on, because I think it's fun. At first, my trepidation, what I was worried about was that I would be covering stuff that everybody knew. Mm-hmm. Like I'd say, oh, well, On the Waterfront, or Carl Sandburg, or something that I think is 101. Mm-hmm. And then you have to realize that in this day and age, no, people don't have any background. They don't know the Greek myths. They don't know the Bible. They don't know what I guess would have been considered a white people classical education in the old days. I don't know it either, because I had to ad hoc learn it myself. I mean, I didn't study it, but you can't even count on those things anymore. And for me, the thing that's weird is you can't count on people having read, like when I was in school, we had to read John Steinbeck and Richard Wright, who wrote Black Boy, and there was at least a glancing assumption that you were going to have some familiarity with a variety of authors, at least S.E. Hinton and J.D. Salinger, and that you were going to know a few figures like Washington or George Washington Carver or John Philip Sousa, or
maybe the 50 states,
maybe the capitals. That was a big thing when I was little, to learn all the capitals. We also, my generation, we had to learn how to add and subtract.
Really?
And do long division. Yeah, I'm still old enough that I got in under that. Computers were not a regular thing until I was in college. And then they were the big old ones that used Pascal and stuff. But I was talking to my wife about it today. We had video classes from 11 or 12 on. So we were already completely immersed in video and making videos and knowing what video meant and video timing and all that. So I don't think we're that old-fashioned.
It just all moves so fast.
Yeah.
I think that the benefit of it, and of podcasts in particular, and yours specifically, is that these kids are listening, like, in the blanket forts, right?
Yeah.
The same that I was listening, when I was 9, I was listening to Jack Benny.
Right.
Under the blanket.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was all about Jack Benny.
She's singular.
Yeah, I was WBBM in Chicago, would play old radio shows, and so my big rebellion was to stay up all night listening to Jack Benny and George Burns, and like that was that.
I loved it too when I was little.
Oh my God, I loved it.
KSFO used to play it here at night.
Yeah. It would be so late at night, but I would stay up for it. And I mean, I would learn. That's how I learned about the world from like the post radio hour, things like that. And that I was homeschooled, and so that that really like bled into. Well, I'm gonna go out. And I have to find everything out. Mom will teach me long division, but beyond that, I don't really remember much. But we would have to find in the library whatever we were curious about. And then we got Comedy Central on cable. So I learned everything from there. And kids today, it's not like you can be like, oh, you're too old. You're never going to understand what I'm talking about. And you're not of that age. But because we can look it up, everything is timeless now. So does that give you like a new sense of responsibility in your
Well,
comedy?
I want to be accurate, but I also, I feel like I wonder about my generation because I feel like my generation might be the worst parenting generation that ever lived, because they raised a group of illiterates and were so self-absorbed they couldn't be bothered to teach anybody who Malcolm X was,
Yeah.
I had a girl get up and she goes, I'm 22. Who's Ronald Reagan? And she wasn't asking like, she was like, please tell me.
Please genuinely.
I keep hearing it. And I thought,
sounds important.
Your parents never, ever discussed like, well, anything leads to anything else? That's not something that happened at the table? It was like, no, it isn't. So I understand that. So I'm willing to start at the very beginning. Like, the one that, when it really came home to me, well, one of the million times, but I was in Chicago, not this year, but 2 years ago. And I was at Zany's, and I took out Chicago by Carl Sandburg. Now, we had to read Carl Sandburg when I was little in school, so I figured, well, everybody in Chicago has to have grown up hearing this poem 1,000 times. Well, I went, okay, Chicago, you ready for this poem? And they're like, yeah, what is it? And I read it, and of course they loved it because it's such a great poem. And it talks about a cop shooting a guy and all the things that still happen in Chicago other than the stockyards and a few things that are a little dated. But it's a really salient poem and trenchant and pertinent to Chicago and the mood hasn't changed in 100 years. And everybody loved it. And I thought, oh, they don't sit you down and make you read Chicago when you're from Chicago. It's like, well, that's a pity. You know, so that's what we try to do. I mean, I don't consciously think of it. When I was in Chicago, I thought, oh, I'll do it. And then I was so scared to do it. And then when I did it, I thought, well, that emboldened me to, like, I go to Ireland and read poetry to Irish people, which is just a terrible breach of...
I've heard. No, it's wonderful. I think that everybody is almost shocked that there's poetry happening. I mean, you have free reign over all of our brains. I mean, you really have kind of raised a bit of a kitten's army of these intellectual feminists that I just imagine them all over the world, everywhere you go, just giving you things and listening to everything you say. And then, you know, that's in the morning, that's like my devotionals in the morning, the way it was for my mom and Dr. James Dobson. Like, I get up in the morning and I light my blunt and I you know, pour my coffee and put all of that drugs in it, and then I start the day. And nice. I email my congressman, and I read Howard Zinn. I mean, I'm fully brainwashed by you. But honestly speaking, I think that you're probably the best choice of middle-aged white guys to brainwash.
I'd like to thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. Because middle-aged white guys are a bitter pill, and we're not representing that hard, and we're not bringing a lot of joy to the world. There's a few of us that try to represent the other side, and I don't know why I'm this way, but I accept that. I accept that I'm trying to... I mean, I said to my niece once, I wish I was in your life more. I'm sorry I'm so selfish. And she went, no, you're the cool uncle. And I thought, well, I'll be the cool uncle, you know.
Yeah, that's an important role. Because we need that. You know, we've talked before, when I was living in Texas and working on a golf course, I would listen to you, and I learned to use my words to defend myself out in wild land where it's just 42 Rick Perrys and carts getting drunk with their man bag beer and accosting me all day. But that's how I funded my move to California.
Well, that's awesome.
So, you know, I was able to learn a lot, and it taught me a nice lesson in, hey, you know what? White guys can be okay sometimes.
Well,
so I appreciate that.
Some of us are okay. The rest of the country and the rest of the world is not on this tip. It's not a free-range chicken, let's all love each other thing out there. There's very little of that, in fact. And you get to Texas, and I have loads of relatives in Texas, and they all still live there. And I disagree with many of them on a lot of fundamental issues. You know, I still love them, but there's not a big, like, women should do what they want and it's okay to be gay. And
no,
it's exactly the opposite of that. It's I hate that Clinton. I hate that Obama. They're ruining the country. They're ruining the world. They're going to take my guns away. They don't respect Jesus. A lot of those weird, you know, the Lord's real important to a lot of people, which seems irrelevant if you're, you know, having to work day to day and you're rational, but it is, you know, it's something that people cling to, and you have to understand that.
Aggressive there. The corporatocracy has such an iron grip on Dallas, especially, and it's just it pulls over to the whole. Just like the state itself gets to be pretty. It can be. You know, I felt the need. It was necessary to get out for my safety and sanity.
A lot of football and whatnot.
Oh, the football. Oh, the icky football.
They love the football.
But your podcast really helped, was like a beacon when I found it, and I would listen to it at night. It was when it was about 3 years ago I started listening, and I was this voice of reason, and I think that having that gave me a lot of the courage and tenacity that I needed to get through the transition of now living in the Bay Area where I'm happy and I'm allowed to talk with that. Usually I don't get into too much trouble about speaking my mind, although I did get accused of being a communist at work, so that was fun because I suggested that they read Howard Zinn.
And that's communism, is it?
It is.
It's not just reading another point of view about history.
Howard Zinn's Mein Kampf.
I see. But if you said you were reading Liz Cheney's history books, that would have been okay, or?
I'm sure. Yeah. I think it was whatever the founding fathers, or if it had been the Gospel of Matthew's Constitution.
Yeah. And then there's that one that's there's one that's like trying to reverse lefty history. I see that on the shelves. I can't think of the name of it. I'm always like, you have to remember all history was written by white men, so there is no alternative to it. Even Howard Zinn was a white man, so
exactly. Yeah.
You know, wow. The fact that people think that American history is being revised and it's being made too liberal, it really gives me a huge pain.
Yeah, especially since like nobody really has a grasp on actual American history anyways. Like,
no.
We don't know what happened.
No.
We know some things because we read. But if you just depend on just like your public school system. I was in the Texas public school system for 4 years for high school, and I was not prepared to face the world when I got out of there. I followed my gaze out to the little Baptist school where we learned about the Apocrypha and about the Gospel of Mary and about how the kings had edited the Bible. Because I grew up in the church, I knew about allegory, and they helped me to understand allegory, which then in turn, of course, kind of bit them in the ass, because then I was like, hey, this is allegory. Marched off to my next literature class.
Yeah, these aren't facts.
No.
These are stories.
Yeah, these are all really great stories.
Well, the Bible. Well, we could be on the Bible the whole.
Oh, couldn't we?
I know, right? But I love it during Christmas because I watch all the Bible movies, and they all have that different, magnificent spins, you know. The greatest story ever told is really lugubrious and ponderous and just makes Jesus into this, you know, at the end, and I've talked about it on the show, my favorite scene was when he's carrying the cross up the hill. Sidney Poitier bursts out of the crowd and carries the cross up the hill for Max von Sydow, who's Jesus at the end. So it's these two, like, delicious superstars of the 60s taking you to the crucifixion, which I love that part, you know. And Herod gets in it at the end. Herod actually meets Jesus in this version of the Bible and is drunk. And Michael and Sarah, who played Thang, the Klingon, is Herod's assistant, which makes it even better. And the two mean Jews in the Sanhedrin are Martin Landau from North by Northwest and Mission Impossible, and the initial interrogators, Victor Bono, who was King Tut on the Batman show.
Yes.
And so watching it as a 60s piece is so great.
Yeah.
Victor Bono goes to one of them. They bring Jesus in front of him. He goes, just answer the Christians, you know. And so I love that part. And then I watch Ben-Hur, and in Ben-Hur, Jesus isn't there. He's only a head or hands or hair, and he's always kind. And every time Jesus is near the camera, the music swells, and it's fantastic. And Judah Ben-Hur, the Jew who becomes a Christian at the end, who's rich and everything, and goes through the hero's journey of being poor and a slave. So he's in one scene and someone helps him and he goes, someone else helped me once. Because when he's on the chain gang, Jesus gives him a dipper of water. And the centurion kicks it away. You've had enough, you know. And he doesn't. He looks up at Jesus, but instead of showing Jesus, it's just a beam of light and the music. And I think, oh, that's the Jesus I love. The
backlit Jesus.
Yeah, backlit with all the great hair and conditioner and sandals and a robe.
Shines that complexion up.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And he's always tall.
Oh, so tall. Oh, tall.
No one was short in the Holy Land. Tall and good looking.
Well, how many short Jews have you ever met?
Well, Bob Saget has to play him in the new version because he's tall now. I noticed they didn't play on any of the stations Mel Gibson's one.
The Passion of the Christ?
Because that's not really a nativity one. I'm getting it.
Well, I feel like that's kind of a very English, like you were in the UK, and that's really like a UK tradition of watching those long Jesus movies, which is surprising. You'd think America would be all about that. I guess we're too busy watching football.
The movie channels often they'll flip a few at you, but not like they used to do in the old days. Although on Easter they do show Ten Commandments and junk like that, or the robe or whatever, which is hoary old thing, but fantastic.
Have you ever been to like a live theatrical staging of?
No, I'd love to. I'd love to go to the Passion Play.
I used to be, and when I was I was 13, I was in a play called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, and it was one of those Hell House, scare everybody in your neighborhood into coming to the church all the time. So I played this, they did it at our church, this like huge Pentecostal church, every year, and I played either an angel to welcome people into the gates or to like doom them. Or then I was also once a teenager who got drunk at a party and then died on the way home.
Awesome.
And what happens to kids who do that?
You go to hell.
You get dragged to hell by the creepy guys from your Sunday school class.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And that really is true.
Yeah.
That's true fact.
That's what happens in Texas. Thank you so much for chatting with me tonight. How are we on time? I feel like
Well, I should probably get out there and
you
start
should
working
probably
soon.
go doing your thing.
If you had enough, thank you. I appreciate it.
I've never had enough.
Thank you for all the nice things you wrote about me as well. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank
Okay.
you.